2026 has seen the rise of Ukraine as a long-range phenomenon. Record-breaking numbers of drones have been sent into Russia and the occupied territories, leading to record-breaking numbers of targets being struck. If the year ended here, Ukraine would have already enjoyed a mind-blowing 2026. But Ukraine has more planned. So much more. This plan is brutal. It's beyond ambitious, but if Ukraine can pull it off, oh man, it's going to be huge. The list has been made. Ukraine's work is underway. What awaits Russia now is the next evolution of a deep strike campaign that has already plunged Putin into despair. On July 26th, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy made the big announcement. Following a meeting with Ukraine's top military commanders, a new list of priority targets has been drafted. This list has been designed to both build on the success of Ukraine's existing deep strike campaign and to attack targets that Russia absolutely doesn't want to lose and may not have even been possible to strike just a few months ago. Zelenskyy says that the ever-expanding range of Ukraine's drones has made the creation of this list possible, as has the failure of Russia's air defenses to stop drones at locations that include Russia's network of oil refineries and many of the military and air bases where Ukraine's long-range sanctions have already scored hits. Today we agreed to continue our operations and updated the list of priority goals in accordance with the real impact on Russia and its ability to continue and prolong this war, Zelenskyy declared, before adding, "The main goal is that our long-range pressure will further push Russia towards diplomacy by complicating the production of weapons components, oil and other economic losses, and returning this war to its home harbor." So Ukraine has a twofold goal: bring the war back to Russia's doorstep and pressure Putin into negotiating for peace. We'll explore how realistic these goals are soon. As for the list itself, it's been drafted not just by Zelenskyy but by the new Commander-in-Chief of Ukraine's armed forces, Mikhailo Drapachy, the Chief of the General Staff, Ihor Skibiuk, and Interim Defense Minister Yevheny Kamara. Drapachy's contributions to the list may be the most interesting. Having only been unveiled as Ukraine's new Commander-in-Chief on July 22nd, replacing the outgoing Oleksandr Syrsky, he is sure to have plenty of ideas about what Ukraine can strike to weaken Russia on the front and put more pressure on Putin back home. This is Drapachy's first chance to show what he brings to the table. Time will tell if the priority targets that he helped name will make a difference for Ukraine. Speaking of those targets, the big question now is also the most obvious. What does Ukraine plan to hit? That's where things get a little hazy. Zelenskyy and his cohorts haven't revealed what's on the list. That shouldn't come as a surprise. Telling Russia that Ukraine plans to hit so-and-so target just gives the Kremlin a chance to load up as many air defense systems at that target as possible. You could argue that there was a chance here for Ukraine to reveal a false list, forcing Russia to send air defenses away from actual targets. But perhaps Ukraine believes that is a gambit too far, and it's better to keep everything under wraps until the drones fly and the fires start burning. However, we may have some indicators about what Ukraine wants to hit based on what it has already struck in 2026. The year has seen Ukraine uncork a massive deep strike strategy, resulting in oil refineries and energy infrastructure, military factories, air defenses and logistical hubs, and even the power grid in occupied Crimea receiving constant visits from long-range drones. Ukraine has also engaged in the systematic destruction of shadow fleet ships in the Sea of Azov and the Black Sea during July, reaching a total of 192 vessels struck as of July 22nd. And of course there's Wildberries. Russia's version of Amazon has absorbed an absolute firestorm of strikes that have destroyed about a tenth of the company's warehouses and stock. According to a July 27th Newsweek report, the damage from those strikes alone can be counted in the billions of dollars. And that's what Ukraine wants most, as much economic pain dealt to Russia as possible. With that in mind, we can assume that at least some of the priority targets have an economic component. More Wildberries facilities may come under fire. After all, there's 90% of the company's logistical network to go, which is many more billions of dollars damage left due to a business that is being targeted because it sells military gear, drones, and components for use by Russian soldiers. We would also be willing to bet that more oil refineries are on the list. July 25th saw Ukraine score a hit on the Tyumen oil refinery, which is about 2,000 kilometers away from the front. What we see here is the impressive range that Ukraine's drones can now achieve, meaning refineries that previously couldn't be struck may now have become priority targets. Keep the range in mind, we'll be coming back to that. There are also more hints about what Ukraine might be targeting from the Kyiv Independence report on Zelensky's new list. The strategic depth that has long been a Russian advantage is now becoming a particular problem for the political and military leadership of Russia, as the majority of Russian air defense systems are concentrated around Moscow, government residences, the Crimean Bridge, and St. Petersburg, the outlet reports Ukraine's president is saying. However, Ukraine's drones have proven many times over that they can overcome these defenses to score hits. So that gives us two possibilities. The first is that Zelensky name-checked these locations because they are the priorities. That would make sense. Ukraine is trying to isolate Crimea, so attacks on the Kerch Bridge that connects it to the Russian mainland makes sense. Hitting the likes of Moscow and St. Petersburg is also good for Ukraine, as these are the two most important cities to Putin. Russia's capital and Putin's hometown are supposed to be the most protected in the war, so any strikes on them damages Putin's reputation as a defender of Russia's people, which is just as important as the economic pain being caused by Ukraine's other strikes. As for the second possibility, Ukraine may be tracking the movement of Russian air defenses. Putin is top-loading those defenses at the locations that Zelensky mentions. That may mean that other targets previously thought unhittable are now both in range and don't have the defenses they need to protect themselves. There are already reports that Russia has moved air defenses from the Arctic region to protect sites that Putin deems most important. Zelensky himself has also claimed that Russia is moving air defense systems around the country, which suggests that Ukraine knows where these systems are coming from and therefore knows which targets have become more vulnerable. Perhaps those newly vulnerable targets are now the priorities, as Putin tries to cocoon himself and a select group of Russian people in air defenses. We'll have to wait and see. Zelensky has also made a point to let Russia know that it won't be able to do anything to stop what's coming. Ukraine's president pointed to the numbers. More than 1,000 long-range strike missions have been successfully carried out by Ukraine since it launched its campaign of long-range sanctions earlier in 2026. Those strikes are just getting deeper and deeper. The Tyumen refinery strike wasn't even a record. That belongs to an attack that occurred just a few days before against the Omsk refinery, which is about 2,500 kilometers away from Ukraine's border with Russia. And according to Zelensky, the limits of its drone range haven't even been reached. Ukraine can now strike targets that are 3,000 kilometers or more away, putting the Urals, Siberia, and many other regions far outside of Moscow in the firing line. Again, this is all about the message. Zelensky wants Putin to realize that the sheer size that has been Russia's great strength in so many wars before has become a liability. Russia is being forced to transfer air defenses because it doesn't have enough of them to cover everything. As the range of Ukraine's drones grows, the list of possible targets gets bigger. That allows for new priority targets to be selected. For now, Ukraine is happy to keep Russia guessing. Will it hit Moscow, St. Petersburg, and Crimea even harder in an extension of an already brutal campaign? Or will it take out targets at even longer ranges that are now weaker than ever because they no longer have air defenses? Russia won't find out until the strikes happen. And sticking with the range, what Putin thinks he has to defend will soon change, as Ukraine is building weapons that can strike even deeper than the ones it has now. That could be a true game changer. But before we dig deeper, this is a reminder that you are watching The Military Show. If you haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to hit the button and enable notifications to ensure that you are among the first to see what we have coming next on the channel. Ukraine has already proven it can strike targets up to 3,000 kilometers away. More is coming, a lot more. Just days before he revealed the existence of Ukraine's new target priority list, Zelensky revealed that Ukraine is actively working on expanding the range of its drones so that they will be able to strike targets that are up to 4,000 kilometers away from its borders. That work should be done before the end of 2026, Zelensky claims, which adds another layer to the list. If Ukraine can add another 1,000 kilometers to its range, then Russia's Far East comes into play. That's bad for Putin, and it will get worse. On top of the 1,000-kilometer upgrade anticipated for this year, Zelensky claims that 2027 will bring with it drones that can travel between 5,000 and 10,000 kilometers. Ukraine's president didn't reveal much more than that. Again, he's rightfully being cagey with the details. But for Zelensky to make a claim like this, he has to have seen technology that Ukraine hasn't revealed to the world or Russia yet. It's another warning to Putin. Ukraine has the list, and it'll soon be able to strike targets that Putin never would have imagined could be struck. On top of that, Ukraine is also working on the creation of its own ballistic missile. That missile, which is being developed by Firepoint, which is the company behind many of the long-range drones that Ukraine is using against Russia, isn't merely conceptual. In a July 18th report, the Kyiv Post revealed that Firepoint claims the missile is reaching completion, and it may be ready to deploy against Russia as soon as the fall of 2026. Speaking about his company's new missile, Firepoint owner and chief designer Denis Shtileman said, "The military will decide where to strike, but I think this will immediately be significant targets." Firepoint is actually developing 2 ballistic missiles. The FP7 has a range of up to 200 kilometers, while the FP9 can strike targets as far as 855 kilometers away from Ukraine. So we have more speculation for the new list. Perhaps some of the priority targets are sites that Ukraine has hit before with drones. But once it gets its hands on long-range ballistic missiles, those sites will go from being hit to being outright destroyed by weapons that deliver much more firepower. Here's what we anticipate. Ukraine's new priority list likely contains a mix of targets that have been hit before, such as the Kerch Bridge, and targets that are now possible to hit in Siberia and Russia's Far East due to the growing range of Ukraine's drones. If Firepoint is correct and ballistic missiles are going to be available within the next couple of months, we also anticipate more powerful attacks against Russian oil refineries in the border regions, especially those that may have had their air defenses removed and brought back to Moscow. What Ukraine has in its arsenal now is variety in terms of range and power. That puts Putin on the back foot. Ukraine can hit almost anything that it wants, and Zelenskyy wants Putin to know that because, when it comes down to it, the announcement of the priority target list is all about one thing: forcing Putin to negotiate. Zelenskyy said as much in the quote that we used to open the video, and he expanded on what Ukraine really wants in the same Telegram post. "We have made all the necessary proposals to the political leadership of Russia to end the war with a decent peace. All partners know what is needed. Our accuracy is effectively working to create the conditions for real diplomacy," Zelenskyy said. In other words, Ukraine has seen the tables and it's turned them. It's Russia that is supposed to be using long-range attacks to bully Ukraine into capitulating. For years, Russia has been able to do that because Ukraine didn't present a long-range threat that was equivalent to the one Russia posed. Now, Ukraine has that long-range threat and then some. That means Ukraine can become the bully that tries to force Putin to the table. Both The Telegraph and The Economist say that forcing Putin to sue for peace is Ukraine's end goal. The former points both to deep strikes and Ukraine's logistics lockdown campaign in the occupied territories as ways that Ukraine is hammering Russia's military to force Putin to the table. Those attacks are happening as Russian advances in Ukraine stall to the point where 2026 stands a chance of being Russia's worst year in Ukraine. Every Russian gain being made now is costly and slow, coming with a price of untold thousands of soldiers. And with every passing day, more of the Russian war machine gets destroyed, be that refineries and targets inside Russia or logistical nodes in the occupied regions. The Economist goes a step further, stating that Ukraine is outright trying to threaten Putin into peace talks. Can't say we disagree. Ukraine's new list is as clear a threat as anything we've seen come out of the country, and it's a threat that is backed by all of the long-range success that Ukraine has seen in 2026 so far. Mr. Zelenskyy's threats are not idle. Ukraine is bombing refineries in Russia, forcing petrol rationing in over a dozen regions. Strikes on roads, bridges, refineries, and ferries into Crimea are starving the Russian-annexed peninsula, home to a massive military grouping of the means to function, the outlet says. Ukraine knows that most of Russia will want to avoid more of the pain that it's already experiencing. That's why it's revealed the existence of its new list. But Putin isn't all of Russia, and that may end up being a problem. Ukraine's strategy to force Putin to the table may not work simply because Putin dug himself so deep into a hole with his Ukraine invasion that he knows he'll end up buried in that hole if he capitulates in any way. We see that with Russia's recent rhetoric about peace talks. Earlier in July, the Financial Times reported that sources close to Putin had revealed that he is unlikely to engage in any sort of meaningful peace talks until at least February 2027. The Russians, the preferred outcome is still that the Americans hand Ukraine over to us. They are not even hinting at any concessions. They keep repeating the same objectives. Their negotiating position essentially leaves no room for meaningful talks, one of the sources told the outlet. Rather than recognizing the damage that Ukraine is doing and will expand upon in the future, Putin is instead hardening his stance as he insists that Russia is winning, despite all of the evidence to the contrary. Putin wants more concessions at a time when Ukraine may well be the strongest that it's been at any time during the invasion. It doesn't make sense, and that's the problem. Putin has lost himself to his own war. More recently, on July 27th, the Kremlin made light of an air truce plan that the US and Ukraine reportedly have in the works, dismissing reports as mere media speculation that won't be credible until a plan is presented. That sort of response hardly shows any sort of enthusiasm for a peace process that Putin has only pretended to engage in to get what he wants out of Ukraine. It's also unlikely that Russia will want an aerial truce. Though that would spare the nation from what is to come as Ukraine starts working down its priority list, it would also mean that Russia can no longer launch missiles and drones at Ukraine's civilians, which is a key part of Russia's terroristic strategy. For Ukraine, peace is preferred. But if Putin says no, then the fire will come. A warning shot was just delivered a couple of days after Zelenskyy revealed Ukraine's list, as Ukraine sent 390 drones into the Moscow region. Russia claims to have intercepted the majority of these drones, but Ukraine may have just wanted to deliver a reminder to Putin that Moscow isn't safe. Neither is anywhere else in Russia. Euromaidan Press reports that there has already been a 1,150% increase in Ukrainian deep strikes since the beginning of 2026. United 24 media adds that this increase amounts to Ukraine having hit 697 targets throughout Russia as of July 10th, costing the Kremlin $6.1 billion in the process. If Putin won't bow to the pressure, then more will come. That's the message that Zelenskyy wants to drill into Putin's head as Ukraine prepares a new round of strikes against its priority targets. Putin now has to fear the unknown. He won't know when Ukraine's drones will come or what they'll target until Ukraine lets him know with the fires and explosions that result. Keep an eye on the channel during the next few weeks. We have a feeling that we'll be reporting on more than a few of Ukraine's new priority targets. And while you wait for those inevitable reports, why not learn a little more about the Wildberries strikes? We mentioned them earlier, and we wouldn't be surprised if more of the company's facilities have made Ukraine's list. If you want to find out why Wildberries is such a big target, watch our video. We explain Ukraine's strikes and reveal how they're all part of a pressure campaign that will turn Russians against Putin. And if you enjoyed this video, remember to subscribe to The Military Show and ring the notification bell so you keep up with what's happening as Ukraine starts hitting the targets on its lists. And thank you, as always, for watching.